simply not our culture. So we have a slideshow that we'll have in the show notes. You can find that at BEMADiscipleship.com or in your podcast app of choice if you're listening that way. So Marty, why don't you walk us through that? Let's start specifically with the way that we think about things.
Yeah, so I want to put these two worldviews next to each other so we can appreciate the differences. So if we start with way of thinking, I want to start with words and how a Greek and a Hebrew thinker see words differently. For the Western thought, for the Greek thinker, which would be the world that you and I are used to, we use words to express truth, and we use definitions. We prefer prose and outlines and lists and bullet points. And if you don't believe me, just look at the presentation when you download it. It is this wonderful PowerPoint with sections and bullet points and definitions and subtitles. That is how we use words. We use words to communicate truth in prose and definitions. But a Hebrew thinker, an Eastern thinker, uses words to express truth in picture and in story. So an Eastern thinker does not use definitions. An Eastern thinker prefers poetry and imagery and symbolism. And one of the ways I think you see this is if a Westerner, if you ask a Westerner, like, what are the attributes of God, or what is God like? They're going to say things like omniscient and omnipresent and sovereign and loving. Each one of these things is a word that comes with a definition that you have to understand in order to have that conversation. Ask an Easterner, what is God like? And an Easterner is going to say, God is a fortress. God is eagle's wings. And it still has all kinds of meaning packed into it, but from a completely different place. It's a picture, a poetic image that's meant to communicate. God is a fortress. That communicates things that we could talk about for the next 10 minutes. God is a fortress. But it's not a definition, and it's not prose. So the other thing I think we could talk about, if we were to move on next, would be the numbers. And you think to yourself, like, how in the world can numbers be different? Like, numbers are the...
One of the things I've been thinking about a lot recently is this story. You know, as you enter into a new space, as unmapped territory becomes mapped territory, you start to understand what attracted you to that exploration, and then you see other things even further back that you didn't see before. And one of the things that I realize even just now in looking at this is that those of us who may be more artistic, some of us who as we were children dreamed about writing our own stories, some of us who took up poetry in high school, some of us who ended up making music when we were younger, are attracted to, let me show it again, are already predisposed to this Eastern way of thinking in a very Western world when we don't even realize it. This is what great storytellers, this is what great artists, this is what great poets, great rappers, great musicians, great filmmakers understand. This is why they're always kind of on the edge. In some real sense, they are always on the edge because, and I'll get into more of this stuff in a different series, but I think my artistic inclinations, or even early in life, pre-exposed me, were predeterminative that I would find this way of thinking very attractive and would be in a lot of ways disillusioned with this purely materialistic sense in which many people wanted to interpret the Bible as I got older. Because it's something we say on this podcast all the time. Why would it be any other way? Why would God, in using narrative and using characters and in expressing these truths be merely talking about the physical actions of these people, of these things, of these events. I don't want to take that too far. We're going to get caught up in another rabbit trail here. Well, all I want to say is, when I was younger, and I wish to do some more now, but when I was in college, when I was in high school, late in high school, when I was writing poetry and I would make rap music, I would obsess over expressing truth in words and pictures and stories. And that was way different than when I would write an essay. But I found that if I can write an essay in using these Eastern ways, it becomes way more vibrant. And this is what good writers understand, even good Western writers understand, is that if you can marry these two things, you're going to have something that's very powerful. So I want to read to you something quickly.